I think they increase their chances only to a point, though. And, George, this is what stuns me, having covered Jerry and Michael Reinsdorf for years and years. That was an ownership group that did not want to go all in to potentially be a team that got bounced in the first or second round of the playoffs. I know Karnisovas and Eversley are trying to do their own thing in that front office, and I know fans are excited. But when I look at that team in comparison to the rest of the East, I just don't think they improve that much where you can start looking at them going, oh, okay, I see them having a legitimate chance to get up to the top of the Eastern Conference.
The Bulls have gone all in on two sub-all-star 30-year-old guys in Nick Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan to try to keep a guy in Zach Lavine who has never been on a winning team and now is going to be a free agent in the year and could leave. And I think there's a real chance the Bulls don't even make the play-in tournament. You know, when you talk about this depth in the Eastern Conference, I think they could finish 11th or 12th very easily. They're going to have a terrible defense. And you look at the way this team is built, like, yes, those guys are durable, but I do not see them having any kind of high ceiling. And now they can't trade a draft pick until what, 2030, 2040?
Yeah, I agree with you defensively. I don't know how they're going to be able to play defense.
It's clips like this that have slowly drawn me away from mainstream sports media, ESPN in particular, because more and more we have seen these large platforms spewing nonsense without any real insight or rationale to back up their comments, all in the name of producing shock value comments for clicks and simply just following what their colleagues are saying without any due diligence or analysis to back up their claims. No elements of creativity or data to, again, back any of it up. And I'll be honest, I rarely listen and watch ESPN and their analysis anymore because it's mostly garbage takes and very regurgitated content. But I had a good 10 to 15 comments in my recent videos from you guys asking whether I saw this segment on the jump about what was said regarding the Bulls. And of course I had to watch just because you all seem pretty outraged by it. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Real quick, guys, I will be announcing the final giveaway in the series of giveaways for the channel getting to 10,000 subscribers this week, in which I'll be giving away 2 tickets to a Bulls game at the United Center for this upcoming season. Now, obviously the schedule hasn't come out yet, but I will coordinate with the winner on a date that works for a game once the schedule does in fact come out. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have the notifications on so you don't miss a video for when this is announced. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get back into the topic. So over the course of the last few years, I have slowly stopped watching ESPN talk show series because they have just become more and more outlandish with their wild takes, and it's become evident that their thoughts and analysis on the game are being fed to them by some interns who clearly don't follow the game of basketball in its entirety and just stick to the most basic topics to try and sound insightful, when in reality, these guys aren't watching the broader league as a whole. So when they talk about a team like the Chicago Bulls, who I'm almost certain they barely watched last season and don't understand the mechanics of what this front office is trying to do for the further direction of this team. So when I saw this segment of these three, including Nick Friedel, who used to cover the Bulls as their beat writer, I had to come on here and discuss how stupid these takes are, that the Bulls barely improved their current roster and that they're going to even get lucky to make the playoffs and possibly even miss the play-in. So first of all, Nick Friedel, who, I'll be honest, when he was a Bulls writer, I never really was a fan of his work. I thought that he was very critical and patronizing of the Bulls to the point where I had to unfollow him on Twitter, because even when the Bulls would play a good game or do well, he would somehow find a way to put a negative spin on it. And I get it, I've been critical of the Bulls during those Jimmy Butler and D Rose years to an extent, particularly as it relates to the front office and their decision making, but nothing like Friedel, who seemed to enjoy criticizing the organization any chance he got. But even his comments on the Bulls weren't as bad as the other two. I actually get Friedel's skepticism to an extent here. I mean, he's not wrong in saying that it's very unlike the Reinsdorfs to go all in to construct a team that is not a championship contender, which I've said it before, the Bulls, as they are currently constructed, are not a title contending team. And it's very possible you're going to see a second round exit. I've said before, this team's ceiling is an Eastern Conference final bid, which isn't a bad thing. We've seen the Bulls in the Eastern Conference finals all but once since the Jordan years. So I would be ecstatic if we had that kind of playoff run after missing it this past season. So Friedel is right in that we're so used to seeing the Reinsdorfs really just being cheap and not willing to spend big money and going all in on a roster unless it was clear that this is a championship team written on it. But Nick Friedel is completely wrong and to say that this team has improved marginally, stating that they didn't improve that much compared to the rest of the East. Compared to the rest of the East. Look, I know the Eastern Conference got better. I mean, this is the first time in a long time where you can say that the East is a pretty evenly matched, conference in terms of competition with the Western Conference, if not even better than the West. But that includes the Bulls as a team that has now made the East more competitive. When you add an all-star at the trade deadline last season like the Bulls did by bringing in Nikola Vucevic, and then you add a young point guard and a former number 2 overall pick whose skill set fits exactly what the Bulls lacked last season in playmaking and perimeter defense, and then you add another former all-star who had one of the best seasons of his career last year in DeMar DeRozan, which, yes, I get it, he's a little bit older at age 32, but 21, 4, and 7 is nothing to sneeze at. Then you also add another defensive-minded guard in Alex Caruso. You draft what appears to be a first-round talent, picking him in the second round, also another defensive guard. And on top of that, you have Zach Lavine, an all-star in his prime, and then another up-and-coming player going into his second season in Patrick Williams. And don't forget about Coby White. This kid is still a solid player and will be a great offensive piece off the bench. They didn't improve that much. What does improvement look like to you? Because this is a substantial upgrade to the roster. Again, I'm not saying this is a title contending team, and I've said it before, and I still need to see how this team does on the court because there could be some challenges as to how this team is going to fit and if there will be any clashing egos. And of course, it also takes a little bit of time for new players to get acclimated to playing with one another. And I'm also still not 100% sold on Billy Donovan being the right coach for this team, so I can even be a bit skeptical myself. But trying to look at this from a non-Bulls fan's perspective, you have to be out of your mind if you think this team didn't improve all that much. And as one of them said, I think this Bulls team could finish 11th or 12th in the East very easily because they have terrible defense. I'm sorry, that is just straight unintelligible nonsense. Saying that we went after 2 sub-all-stars, Lavine has never been on a winning team, and that we have terrible defense. First of all, you can call them sub-all-stars or subpar all-stars all you want. The fact of the matter is they are still all-stars. One of them being an all-star last season, and DeMar DeRozan, obviously a 4-time all-star. Lavine never won anything. Are we going to completely ignore circumstance and that Lavine has always been on a bad team throughout his whole career without talent around him? And look, I've been critical of Lavine. You guys know that if you've been following my channel for a while, but this narrative that Lavine can't win is so baseless when you factor in the rosters that he's had to play with. You would have said the same thing about a guy like Devin Booker until last season when he finally got a talented all-star point guard next to him. It's all circumstantial. And then to say the Bulls have terrible defense, I agree with that statement if you're talking about last season, although I think terrible is a bit over the top because there were teams much worse than the Bulls at defense last year. But you're adding 2 highly skilled guards, actually 3, now that I think about it, in Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and now Ayo. Not only that, but they also brought in Tony Bradley, who was a solid rim protector down low, and Lavine, if you watched him on Team USA, he actually played pretty solid defense. And are we forgetting we still have Patrick Williams? And it's not like DeMar DeRozan is a terrible defender. Yeah, he's not really known for his defense, but like Zach, he's not a bad on-the-ball defender. And the last time I checked, defense, although yes, very important and something I've harped on this Bulls team about a lot last season, and that they really need to improve it, but even bad defensive teams who were elite on offense have been able to make title runs, some even winning championships. You look at a team like the 2015 or 2016 Warriors, not the best defensive team, but they were absolutely elite on offense and were one of the best teams in NBA history. Not saying that the Bulls are going to be like the Warriors, just using it as a comparison that you don't have to be amazing on defense to still not be a good team in the NBA. Hell, even look at the Hawks from last season, a bad team on defense, but they were incredible on offense, particularly without outside shooting, and that got them to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, you can say that this Bulls team, I question their defense. I don't think they're going to be that good on defense, and as a result, they're likely not going to be able to make a deep playoff run. That is fine. That would be accurate. It would be fair to say. But to say that they're not even going to make the play-in, a team with 3 all-star caliber players, a young playmaking point guard, other young talents in Patrick Williams, Coby White, and Dosunmu, hell, maybe even Lauri Markkanen, who knows what's going to happen with that guy, A team that has 3 players who all average more than 21 points per game last season, and a point guard who is known for his playmaking in transition, while you also have DeRozan, who has been shown to be a great playmaker and facilitator in the half court. I'm sorry, but that's not an 11th or 12th seed team in the East. And I've said it before, if the Bulls do somehow miss the playoffs, Billy Donovan is 100% getting fired. There's no question about it. And all of these guys just kept talking about how much the East has improved, how the East is so deep right now, and the Bulls went all in to just barely make the playoffs on some subpar All-Stars. I'm sorry, but where are the Miami Heat then? They went all in on Kyle Lowry, paid him more than the Bulls did for DeRozan. He is older and didn't even play as well as DeRozan did last season. Not only that, but they gave Butler another max contract extension and will be paying him close to $50 million at the end of his contract when he's 36 years old, but somehow that wasn't an overpay, but DeRozan's was. Not only that, but they also gave Duncan Robinson a $90 million contract, but no one is saying they went all in just to be an okay team in the East. The only 2 teams that I can say with a certainty that will be better than the Bulls next season, barring any major injuries of course, are the Bucks and the Nets. The Sixers, the Celtics, yes, even the Heat, I can see them being better than the Bulls, but I can't say that's for sure since we've really not seen how these teams are going to be able to play, or we've seen them struggle in the past. The Hawks and the Knicks, I don't know. I think their success last season was a bit fluky. I could be wrong. I think Trae Young, though, is going to struggle with the new drawing contact rules that the NBA has just implemented. And the Knicks, I mean, sure, they got Kemba, they re-signed Rose, they extended Randall, but looking at the roster side by side with the Bulls, I really don't know how you can say that the Knicks will be a better team. Aside from that, you're telling me the Wizards, Pacers, Hornets, or even the Raptors are going to be better than the Bulls? Come on now. Like, at least use some logic and common sense with these asinine takes. Like, seriously, even if I'm a non-Bulls fan looking at this team, I'm saying this team is absolutely making the playoffs. Not only that, but they're likely going to be a top 6 seed in the East when you just look at their roster alone. Saying that they're not even going to make the play-in is clearly someone that hasn't done their research, gave a lazy take for some shock value, all because the Bulls don't have defense. But you know what? I like this. I like this for this Bulls team, and I'm probably going to have to make a separate video on this because you have so many guys on this roster who are out there to prove all the haters wrong. Out there to prove they are capable of more than just what the mainstream media is saying about them. Guys like Zach Lavine, who everyone was talking about how he finally won 4 straight games being on Team USA, as if he's just an empty stats player who can't win games. A guy like Lonzo Ball, who everyone was counting out, hell even me, and saying that he just never really lived up to the hype that we expected of him coming into the league. A guy like DeMar DeRozan, who people were saying his game doesn't fit in today's NBA because of spacing and outside shooting and how the mid-range game is dead. A guy like Dosunmu, who so many teams passed up on that he fell all the way into the second round of the draft. A guy like Patrick Williams, who a lot of people said the Bulls reached when taking him number 4 overall in the draft last year. All of these guys have chips on their shoulder, and they're going to take that into next season and using it as motivation. And then maybe they can shut up these clowns and ESPN can get some actual talented sports reporters who understand the game of basketball instead of just giving us lazy takes and go with whatever is trending. Anyway, that's enough of me ranting, just really over how this team is getting no respect for the bold moves that were made this offseason. But let me know what you guys think, though, of this segment from the jump. Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.